With today's Warcraft 30 Direct stream, we got a lot of cool releases, throwbacks, and even a sneak peek to the 11.1 Need for Speed patch. But the most hyped topic, and the one I'm looking forward to the most, is player housing. This is something that the community has asked for years, and finally Blizzard is going to deliver on that. I personally haven't played this game all that long. I really started in Dragonflight, so the ideas and the things I'm going to be talking about in regards to player housing will come from other MMOs like EverQuest 2 and Final Fantasy. I've never done a video like this, so I'll be walking around my garrison and I'll put some stuff up on the screen to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I'll be breaking this video down into three categories, one being my predictions, the other being the things I would like to see or would be cool to have. Then I'll talk about things that I don't want to see and just some crazy ideas that I thought of off the top of my head when I first heard the announcement. So for predictions, in the trailer at the end of it, we saw that there is a Horde and Alliance map. My first prediction is going to be that we will get two types of housing, one being Horde and one being Alliance. With more to come in future patches, what would be cool is if they added race themed housing. So if you have like an orc housing type, which would be pretty similar to the theme of Orgrimmar, or a human housing theme where it's more like Stormwind, or something like Tauren where it's outdoor themed and maybe more nature themed as well. I think that would be kind of cool. For my next prediction, I think we will have housing things that can be purchased from the trading post. At this point, the trading post is something that a lot of players really like, and I think that this is just a natural extension and progression for the trading post because we can already get transmog, we can get mounts, we can get pets. Naturally, we should be able to spend traders tender on things for WoW housing. My third prediction will be that we'll be incentivized to farm old content or specific furniture, item pieces, soundtracks, similar to what we had in the garrison. I don't think they need to go overboard with this where you have to farm a million different things, but I see this system of furniture being similar to the transmog system where every single expansion and maybe every single zone and raid is going to have some furniture pieces that you can purchase that then you can put into your house. The fourth prediction on my list right here is that we will have access to transmog, and I believe the trailer also had a training dummy, and they could put in a couple of different amenities. I don't think they're going to be putting in things like a bank or profession tables, but having the ability to change your transmog, get like a haircut or something, and even have like a training dummy in there where you can practice your rotation. That would be very cool and add more depth to WoW housing. Now I'd like to move on to things I would like to see or would be kind of cool to have. The first thing on my list is the ability to right click on someone and teleport to their house. I think this option should only be reserved to big cities and tavern places. And obviously once you teleport out of their house, you just come back to where you just teleported from. The next thing that I think would be cool that is built upon my first point of being able to teleport to people's housing is a privacy setting. I'm pretty sure in EverQuest 2, you could have like a list of people that can visit your house, but something that they can do to simplify that is have a couple of options where you can have people on your bnet to be able to visit your house, people in your guild, and people in the public. So if someone wants to share what their house looks like, you can right click on it and visit it in open world, even if you don't know them. But if they want to keep that for only their bnet friends or their guild, that's something that they can choose as well. So the next thing that I think would be cool to have in this game, that would be screenshot or picture frames in the house. Let's say that you kill a boss or you get like a mount or something that you've been grinding for the longest time. Maybe you can use the in-game screenshot feature to take that screenshot and upload it into the picture frame in your house. And I think that would be a very, very cool idea, very unique. I'm not aware of any other game that does anything similar to that. The only concern with that would be to not allow just random screenshots or pictures to be uploaded, because that can get pretty bad pretty quickly. On to the next point, which we saw in the trailer. There is a mounted head of a boss or some dragon that you've killed. That would be kind of cool. If there are mounted boss heads that you can have, or trophies, or maybe even like a trophy hall area where you can get really cool trophies for maybe getting Hall of Fame or CE or title in Mythic Plus, like Keystone Master, trophies for some very hard achievements like the Lore Master achievement or 100 reputations. This can be a space where players can really show off their achievements. How cool would it be if you got your friend into the game and you're showing off your house? You can talk about the different trophies or the different accomplishments that you've had in the game outside of just linking an achievement or sharing an achievement screen. I think that would be very cool, and I would really like to see that in the game. The next point, there should be a front and a backyard. And this is something minor, but I would hate to right click on someone, teleport to their house, and it's just in their house. I'd like to see maybe like front yard or a backyard, maybe even like a stable or something to where you can pick your one favorite mount that could just kind of roam around. And this also bleeds into my next point. If you could also have 1 or 2 pets just running around your house. If they do implement a front or a backyard, maybe you can have a mount as well. I think that's something that also blends into the showing off trophies and achievements. So if you have a super rare mount that you want to show off to other players, as soon as they teleport in, they'll be able to see it. Same thing with like a pet. I don't really know much about pets, but if you have like an ultra rare pet and it's just roaming around your house, I think that would be kind of cool to see. The last thing that I would like to see is a mailbox for your house. It makes a lot of sense. You have a mailbox outside your house. I think you should have a mailbox outside of your WoW house as well. Now let's move on to the things that I don't want to see. The first thing I don't want to see is Alliance having much better housing than Horde. And this is something that is obviously opinion based, but I think the Horde garrisons did not look as good as the Alliance ones. The Alliance cities, for the most part, look significantly better than the Horde cities. I would hate for the Alliance to have all of this very proper, shiny stuff, and for Horde to just have a bunch of Orgrimmar inspired copy paste housing. Now, there is something to mention on this, where if you're making a themed based on Orgrimmar or the Undead City and you want it to look in a specific way, that's one thing. I think that's something that should be left up to the player on how they want their housing to be, but just don't limit them to the big city themed housing, if that makes any sense. The next thing I think they should absolutely avoid is housing buffs. Now, this is something that maybe they could dabble in. If you log your alts out in the housing, maybe they acquire the rested experience at a faster rate than maybe in like a city, something similar to that. But there should under no circumstance be anything tied to going home and sitting there for 5 minutes and getting a well-rested buff that gives you 10% more stamina. I think they should stay away from any form of house buffs unless it helps leveling up your alts or something like that, or maybe even giving them a small reputation boost. They can dabble in that. I could see those things being kind of cool, but stay away from player power. So the third thing that I would hate to see is that they limit the instance to 5 people. I think player housing should have a higher limit of players, and this is something that I haven't really thought about that much, and maybe not a lot of people have brought this up, but I think at a minimum you should be able to have 20 people in your house, at least the size of a raid team. I think that would be kind of cool. You just kill a raid boss, everyone goes back to someone's house and just hangs out. So for the fourth point that I would hate to see in WoW housing, that would be an herb garden or a fishing pond, kind of like in a garrison. But I'm conflicted on this. One side of me says it'd be kind of cool to log in, pick up your herbs. You have like a fishing pond thing that gives you a higher chance at rare fish. The other side of me is saying I would hate to log into this game and then have to go to my stupid house and pick up my stupid herbs and fish in my stupid pond. I don't know. I'm not really sure about this, but I think ultimately I don't want to see any form of daily login stuff to do with player housing. And the last point that I would not want to see, this just kind of sums up all the other points, is the house has to be purely cosmetic. It can't have any player power attached to it. It can't have any daily quests attached to it. It can't have anything that will impact the game or make players feel like they're forced to interact with this mechanic. If they don't want player housing and they don't ever want to see it and they don't ever want to teleport into it, they don't have to, and they won't lose anything out of it. But if you want to put in a bunch of time and effort into it and use it, more power to you. Now let's move on to some crazy ideas that I've had, or or that I've kind of stolen from other games. These aren't good or bad. These are more points for discussion. So the first point would be is a new profession added called carpentry that will allow you to make different furniture, frames, and frames for your trophies. A lot can be explored in this profession. They could make a carpentry profession that makes furniture, but also have them make something that will help. Maybe you can add carpentry into making a feast. So you have to purchase the ingredients for the feast, and the table that is needed for the feast can also come from carpentry. That way, on top of making furniture for housing, they can also make just some unique furniture pieces for cauldrons and feasts. I think that would be kind of cool, and they can also make some money off of it. The next point that I think would be kind of cool is rent. So EverQuest 2 and I believe Final Fantasy, they have rent. In EverQuest 2, the mechanic was that the more furniture you had in the house, especially if it was like rarer furniture or like trophies, it would lower the rent. And so that's something that they can implement into WoW housing later on, where the baseline houses are free. But if you want to have like a big mansion, well, they could make it to where you could be charged gold for it, either weekly or daily or monthly or however. And that could be one of the ways that they can do a gold sink out of the economy. If they do implement a rent mechanic, I think there should be a way to lower that rent, either through different furniture or like a buff, or I don't know. They could do something with it. So my third crazy idea or point of discussion is to have a weekly voting system for a best house. Maybe you can even have a leaderboard of rankings for housing. It could start from the server and go all the way up until like a region or something, and someone could have the most decorated house that everyone votes and thinks the house is the coolest. But this will all depend on the level of customization that we get. Personally, I don't think they're going to let us have just a certain amount of assets and let you place them in the way that you want. If they do, that will add a lot of customization and make everyone's house incredibly unique. And for my last idea, that would be player created assets. This is something that is probably going to be very controversial, but I think this could be a very good point of discussion where players can submit different created housing assets, and if approved by a group of individuals at Blizzard, that item can go on the BNet or the gold marketplace. And if it's gold or BNet, the player will get the majority of the split, and Blizzard can either get a percentage of the BNet cash or a percentage of the gold just gets deleted out of the economy. I think that would be kind of interesting. Not really sure how I feel about that, but it would be kind of cool to see the assets and the things that players can create. Obviously, it's going to have to be on World of Warcraft theme. You can't just be random, assets from other games, but that could be a way for players to earn some BNet cash. I know the World of Warcraft community has a lot of very talented individuals, and I think they can create a lot of assets. This will take some of the load off of Blizzard. Instead of making a bunch of assets from scratch, they can have some players make very cool assets, and they both get rewarded for it. But this is something that is just a crazy idea, obviously, and is up for discussion. I really don't think I'm really sold on any of the last four ideas. The one that I would probably look forward to the most would be carpentry, because I like professions, and I think it would be kind of cool to have a new profession in the game that lets you help other players out with furniture. But I think I've rambled on long enough. I would like to invite everyone to post your ideas on WoW housing or ways that other games have done player housing in a very, very good way. And maybe the World of Warcraft developers can see the video, or we can submit some of this feedback to make WoW housing really good and an enjoyable experience for its players. With that, I'm going to end the video. If you want to support the channel, feel free to drop a like and subscribe.